Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Journeymen podcast.
You better be praying to God because, you're 14 and losses in a row. You're going to need Jesus.
Am I wrong?
I thought you were pretty wrong, yeah.
Welcome to the second installment of the Jason and Aaron show. We are trying a little different setup here. We have the very nice microphone given to me by my bro, Jeremy. Shout out. But yeah, this is the second installment. We've done the first one over at your place, and this one we're doing it over at our Papa's place.
That's that we are. Mostly because he's out of town and nobody's here.
That's exactly true. So, the first one, we kind of just went over, like, the podcast kind of, vibe. This is, again, I said Jason and Aaron show, but it is a, subset of the Fantasy Football Journeymen kind of podcast show. So, this kind of episode, what we're kind of going to get into is I'll let you kind of take and go into the game that we played, the board game, and maybe just kind of give like an overview of the game and how it's played first.
Boy, I didn't even think about doing that. So this past weekend we played a game of Nemesis. Nemesis is a board game that has several installments into it now. Those installments are mostly expansions, one new version of the game. And what happens is you are on a crew of a spaceship. And that spaceship has the crew waking up, kind of not knowing what's going on a very foreign ship to them, and they need to figure out a way to survive. There are aliens that spawn, and they're run by an AI in the game system. And while that's happening, your players all have different objectives, and there are cooperative objectives, and there are uncooperative objectives that you can be succeeding in. So when we played Nemesis, we of course had to make it a little bit harder by adding in not only the max number of people, but adding in an additional 2 to bring the game through to fruition. So we had a pretty fun time playing it. Of course, we did not win. The AI took over. We were killed by a shipboard fire. But for me, I think that was my third time playing that game. A couple rules were forgotten. We picked them up as we went through. But I had a great time. We were going to try to play it the following day. It just didn't work out. But for me, I've been kind of getting into board games of late. And I know that my brother also has been into board games, and he seemed pretty excited for playing it, so I'm really curious to get your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so Nemesis does have the one aspect that I'll just kind of mention here is that it also goes into uncovering new spaces. So, like, there are rooms, technically, and then, or areas of the ship that then once you discover, you flip it over. It's got a whole, like, another kind of level of like, hey, you can do this in the room. It has an objective or items, and so
you're basically building the map as you go.
Right, building the map as you go. So there is that very commonality of a game that I really like that I play with Adam and a couple other people called Betrayal, where you are again discovering the buildings and then each in there. And the one part that I do like about that style of gameplay is that when you do go into certain rooms, there are events that are triggered based off of that. It was more in Betrayal is like a very specific, like once the boiler room is discovered, this triggers an earthquake or whatever. In this one, it wasn't specifically like that because it was more on the turn basis is when things started to pop off. Like the pods would open, escape pods. The countdown to self-destruct would open after you initiate a certain sequence. So, again, it is common, ground in some of it, but there are some.
I would kind of agree to disagree that your entering or your discovery of a room wasn't initiating events, because the first one is that as you move room to room, you make noise, and when you get too much noise, you have to draw a alien character that may or may not appear. There's actually only one blank in there. I don't know the percentages of drawing, but we actually had it.
We don't fact check.
Did happen once or twice. Of drawing no alien showing up. But every time you're adding in the noise, you are increasing the chances of triggering that event, which kind of adds the excitement. We also played one of the mechanics a little incorrectly there as we started because it's been a while since we had played, the people who had played previously. and we had more noise on the board than I think was thought possible. So,
well, yeah, I think that's also though because I think we talked about it because of the amount of players that every single time that somebody was moving,
that surely added in.
Okay.
That surely added in. We played the slime mechanic a little bit incorrectly.
Okay.
So where it was supposed to just change the outcome of your rolls, we were making it as wherever you went, noise went
more
everywhere.
noise, yeah.
Which was a little bit problematic.
So I mean, I will say that again, there's gonna be these things of like unless you play the game religiously and you're going over every single rule every single time, your buddy was only in town, for a little bit, and so again. To forget a rule here and there, there wasn't anything at least
nothing detrimental.
Nothing at least that was like again like a hey, I forgot this rule, now I won. So I do want to talk though about the objective of it though, because that is a very interesting part that I find that again in the rules as it read, it says semi-cooperative.
Yes,
and right there I was like, what does that mean? And then you guys proceeded to explain that like you are picking objectives and they could be for the greater good. Everybody's trying to get on one page. Or you could have one that says kill everybody. You're the only one to get off the ship.
So what was your objective?
So I had two different cards that you were provided. You could choose, which is honestly it's kind of weird though because you have two cards that have two different objectives kind of on the.
So those objectives are the personal objectives and the corporate objectives.
Right.
So there's not necessarily like. Playing the white hat or black hat in the game.
What does that
so
mean?
much like the good guy or the bad guy.
Okay.
It's not so much that as it was that one objective is a personal thing, really relegated to like objectives I believe that are set for you to complete. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other one is more so based upon other players, like other players having things happen or you doing something to another player. That was my read on it. I could be completely wrong on it.
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
We didn't bring the game cards with us here to look at because we just thought about doing this pretty much at the last minute.
I mean, I would also say just a quick interjection here of like, I definitely think that in the future we could easily do an Armada. We would obviously have to figure out the cameras, but having Armada, maybe we do with one camera showing the actual game play, the board, and then the other one maybe on us. And going through a little bit of that.
And then leave comments open so everybody can tell us all the rules that we got wrong.
Yeah, I mean, again, the rulings and stuff like that. We play Armada, another type of... what would you describe Armada?
It's called a miniatures game. It's a strategy miniatures game. Actually, I was reading a little forum today that there's another game, Star Wars miniatures game out there called X-Wing. And somebody said that he thinks X-Wing is checkers and Armada is chess.
Okay.
Because Armada focuses on the capital ships more so than
points.
The fighters.
Points based, right?
It's points based. X-Wing is also points based, but it's focused on the ships. So I recently played a little bit of that game. It's very interesting. A little bit different, but.
So circling back though to the again, I did go off on a little bit of tangent.
You did. You're guilty of your own the thing that you are always pet peeving about.
I'm not gonna get into that. But,
tangent sin.
No, but going back to the objectives and the cooperative, semi-cooperative kind of idea of it is that I really really enjoy a game that like as you are, you got it?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, as you are going through the game, like the discussion is about like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys? Without specifically stating like, hey, you are like I'm trying to do this or whatever. I feel like again there are games like this Betrayal game where I will kind of shout out at him, but also like I was so frustrated at him because in the rules of this Betrayal game, he does not have to divulge what he's doing. And if the card says you do not have to say, so I was asking him questions. I'm like, all right, man. So like, what does that mean? And he goes, this is what it means. Like the room is here. And I go, what the heck does that mean?
You're basically playing Guess Who.
So like again, in the Betrayal game, there was a specific thing of like the card tells you that you do not have to share information because it is more of a singular kind of more, I would say it's more of a single player kind of objective. Whereas, again, I just was appreciating that this game could be where you are talking it through of like, hey, where do you need to go?
And to me, like, that's what I really, really enjoy about Nemesis.
Yeah.
Is that cooperative aspect because The players have different abilities. There are different items you pick up. There's different places to go. There's a lot of strategy to be had. And because of that, I feel like it really promotes that teamwork objective, the teamwork necessity in there, so that you can continually communicate, hey, I'm going to go to this room. I need you to go to that room. One of the big things that happened in our game is that a friend of mine, Rick, he called out, he's like, all right, you have a big gun, you have a big gun, you have a big gun. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make up a fire team, and we're going to move room to room, just whacking aliens. And that worked for the most part in the beginning, except we ultimately succumbed to a small shipboard fire that broke out in our bedroom and spread continually because we could not find the fire control system, nor did we really work to find fire extinguishers to put these fires out. So when the event phase of the game, the fires spread. And once you get more than, I believe it was 8 fire tokens,
ships,
8 rooms on fire, the ship blows up.
Which makes sense.
So what was your objective in the game that you had, if you happen to remember?
Yeah, so mine was the ship must reach Earth or you must be the only person to survive.
Okay.
So that's the one that I chose. And this is like kind of where, as you were talking about Rick's strategies, like again, it was a good strategy to kind of talk about like, okay, this is what we should do. Keep together, grouping, especially in a game that aliens or, whatever they're called, the predators.
Yeah, they're the exomorphs, I believe.
Exomorphs. I mean, they looked exactly like Alien. Pretty much.
Yeah.
But they're
really, really amazing miniature models in that game.
Yeah, he does need to paint them though, for sure.
I mean, there's like
they would look so much cooler.
70 of them. I couldn't believe how many aliens there are in that.
Right. So the point though that of keeping together, keeping in the same vicinity though, is that because of the way in which the aliens can just pop up right away, I would say that's a pretty good strategy off the bat. The part that then comes in with deceivery is the fact of the matter is that one, just frankly speaking, I haven't played too much with Rick or Staller. Or Jeremy or you in this type of game, so that I didn't really have a good gauge on like what are people trying to do. If they tell me something, are they truthful? Are they trying? And Matt, I'm sorry, I left out Matt.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean, like there's a little bit of story to that and a reason for it too. So the first time we played the game was my friend Aaron and Matt and I, and Aaron had just gotten it. He had opened it up. It was actually a Kickstarter campaign that he got the game from. And we played the first round. We said, gentlemen's agreement. You're going to get objective cards. Everybody pick the cooperative objective versus an uncooperative one.
Oh, you guys decided that off the bat.
I called it out. And we did in this game, too, because, again, like that's if you're playing new players, I feel like with the difficulty of the game inherent with the AI, everything else works in there, you're better off trying to work together than you are to work against each other. Plus, it's also the thing that I really like about that game is trying to work together. Unfortunately, the first time we played the game, Matt picked to try to kill everybody, and that was his objective. And we had this gentleman's agreement of not doing that, and he, of course, went and he said, I'm doing this. So he picked that objective. He didn't win. Nobody won because we all died.
Right.
But that was what's going on. So my objective that I had was to send the signal, which would have happened if anybody had sent the signal.
Right.
And it was send the signal and the ship arrives to its destination, or send the signal and the ship blows up. And none of those conditions were met. If somebody had set the signal, I would have won because the ship ended up blowing.
Well, I think a couple people would have won. So this is the part that I do actually enjoy. It didn't work out in my favor, just because honestly it was just kind of a too little, too late type of like switch over though. But you have this game is based off of turns, and then once you go through 15 turns, the ship does self-destruct, right?
It's
no, I'm sorry. It reaches its
It
destination.
jumps to hyperspace.
That's
in
right.
15 turns. Self-destruct can be activated by an event, or a person can activate the self-destruct. Right. Some of the other things that can happen too is like you go to the control room, like the pilot station, and you can choose as one of your actions to view the destination. You don't have to divulge that, or you can tell people a lie. depending upon what your objectives are, which is where those other objectives come into play. We were trying to work cooperatively, so by that, telling everybody what was going on. For instance, Aaron went to the back of the ship and checked the engines, and he was able to check... Or no, you checked the engines, right?
I had a...
You got the engine control room.
I was able to check the engines from a faraway place, check them, they were all good, which, again, they could be malfunctioning, which you would then have to fix before you can actually move to hyperspace.
Right, but you could have told us that they were broken.
Right, so...
If that worked for you.
Yeah, so the deception part in that fact is again, I do definitely kind of circle back to, again, knowing the players that you play with definitely helps
100%, 100%.
Two, though, is that being that it was the first time playing, I definitely relish in the fact, though, that you can kind of go with, like, maybe the first game, I'm going to go cooperative. Second game, then I'm maybe going to go deceivious, you know, I'm just throwing
Deception.
There you go. Bunch
Deceptive.
of non-words, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying is that, like, the more that you play, it does give you that kind of opportunity to kind of flare out and figure out different types
most
of,
definitely.
you know, how
Most
you want to
definitely.
play or whatever. So I will just briefly explain, though, is that the switch that I was just referring to, though, of, like, where I was, like, going, the first objective, the personal objective, was it must reach Earth. The ship must reach Earth, which means it can't blow up. It has to, I assume, at least get to hyperspace, and then hyperspace would drop it off. I would assume at Earth, if the destination is correct.
So you would have, if it went to hyperspace and the destination was set, it would have gone to hyperspace, and we would have revealed what the destination was.
Right.
Flipped over what was set. So there's actually, like, there's a little stone that you move for coordinates A, B, and C.
Right.
Or D, and then there's a card that has what those coordinates are. So I guess the ship is only able to program 4 destinations at once.
Real high-tech ship.
Yeah. It's not the top-of-the-line class.
Right.
It's more of the economy version.
So with my switch, though, is that initially we were all in this cooperative space. And then at a certain point, which, again, I admit was a little too late, was I saw the end goal for me.
Okay.
Which would have been the first one was to make it to Earth. The second one was to be the only one off the ship alive.
Right.
So as I saw that we had these fires mounting, and one kind of downfall that you kind of brought up after is that, and maybe Rick also mentioned it kind of during the game, is that we really weren't searching the ship to build certain items that would have been very helpful to put out a fire here. I had the...
Go ahead.
I had the engineering guy, the guy who literally... He's in a wheelchair.
You're the scientist.
Scientist who is in a wheelchair but doesn't need it because he's standing up in another picture.
That was concept art. Don't get super critical.
It's so funny, though. Okay, so with him, I had the ability to put out fires from the fire control room, or the fire... What is it called?
So the second to last tile that we found was the fire controls room, which was also broken.
Yeah.
And had an alien in it. So it took us quite a bit to be able to actually, like, utilize the fire control system. But what it does is, for spending 2 of the 5 action cards you get, you can put out a fire in any room in this ship.
Right. So the goal in mind was, again, playing nice for a good while, and then again I saw my opportunity, and that's where I kind of took it. But I also kind of shown my cards per se, and I'll explain what that means. So, like, I had, like, been talking with everybody. I'm like, hey, get this good, fix the room, and then I can start putting out fires very easily. And I was very true to that. I was like, I still need the ship to at least keep going a little bit. Okay, so you guys were kind of doing your stuff over there, and then I was in, like, these health, like, medical kind of rooms and stuff like that, which didn't really have any benefit to me.
Also broken.
Some of them were broken, but I was able to fix them a couple of them. But then I got into the signal room, and that's what you were referring to. Like, you needed to have the signal out. I literally was in the room. I could have sent the signal out, and everybody was like, hey. I was like, who needs a signal? And
Everybody raised their
3 or 4 people raised their hands. I go, all right, guys, just wait. I'll come back.
Yeah.
And then I think you guys kind of started to notice.
If you had done that, I would have met my conditions for the objective and would have been able to win.
Right.
And I think that I could be wrong on this, but I think the objectives all have like a different point value. Based on if you succeed it, if you get it. And I think that kind of dictates who actually won the game.
I was gonna say, because you guys sending out a signal seems like a very easy task compared to being the only one off of the ship.
Right. So I mean, leading up to this game, there was a lot of discussion on how to make it and adapt it. As I said, the game was designed for 5 players. We were trying to work in 7 players for the game. Utilizing characters from another game, which created a challenge in that their characters were tailored for Nemesis Lockdown, which is more of like a station-based thing. So one guy was a janitor, the other guy was survivor and wouldn't have started with a weapon.
That's shit.
Well, it's just a different version of the game. So all the space guys start with a weapon, and then these guys did not. That was one issue that we were kind of working in there. The second one, the part of the discussion that we had was, is the game going to be too easy? So we were talking about adding more aliens, adding more alien chips in there. You're supposed to add one for every player that's in there into this little bag that you draw what the alien is going to come out if you create too much noise. After a lot of discussion, we decided that the game was hard enough as it was, because the first 2 playthroughs that I've done on it was fairly difficult.
Yeah.
So not really adding any other handicaps into the game to
I think
make it more difficult.
I think the handicap in general that you have to kind of play for or think about is the fact that you have multiple people who have not played the game before.
Absolutely.
And then when you kind of get into it, there are some other things though where I do definitely feel that certain like people definitely play these games maybe a certain type of way, or
for sure
they are trying to go like, again, like the objectives or whatever, they're like, hey, screw, like, again, like I was kind of flip-flopping or whatever. You don't really know though until you kind of actually talk with somebody like after the game and be like, hey Matt, like,
what were you trying to do here?
Yeah, were you actually ever trying to be cooperative?
And there was also that incredible moment where Matt walked into a room and just like one tapped the alien, like he just went in like boom, done. Only 1 dice roll to take him out. So there's one other thing that we ran into, which was just, again, having not played the game in a while, trying to play it and bring it in. We did mess up how the rounds work. So the rounds, you have 5 action cards, and you can complete actions based upon a cost. And you keep on going around until all the players have passed, and that's the end of the round. So I guess it's like turn and round are the 2 different the 2 different pieces of vocabulary that they use. But realistically, what ended up happening is we just kind of went, everybody goes once, that's a round, and we moved and kicked off some events, which created some of its own problems because we were not working to the fullest extent that we could of searching rooms, getting items, doing all what we could with the cards that we had before we drew again.
Yeah, in retrospect, though, I do find that these type of games, and we talked about this definitely off the pod, is just like, these type of games, you have to have full commitment to time because, especially with a game that you like, these type of intricate games. Same thing with Armada is like these type of games take easily about 30 minutes to definitely explain. Probably about another 15 to 20 just to set up, which you graciously have done prior to us getting there.
One of my main tendencies. If we're going to do this, we got to make sure everything is set up ahead of time. Because but otherwise, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, so definitely, though, that part of people trying to get accustomed to the game, I just love the fact that I had the background of kind of a betrayal, so I was already kind of gung-ho into it.
I mean, you walked in, you got a drink, you got some food, and you walked down, we're ripping into the box. Already, you try to look at the pieces, figure out how some of the mechanics work, and I was like, man, I called it. He's really going to like this game.
Yeah, no, it was I think definitely it's a 10 out of 10. But again, I always want to keep trying to play it and stuff like that, or even just games that again are similar. I actually bought Jeremy the Betrayal for Christmas one year, and maybe we can have him.
I've bought him several games as well.
Bring that over. But I mean,
get him open and get him going.
What you really need to do, though, again, I think, is to really designate some time for these games so that when you are doing it, like, there's no, like, hey, like, let's kind of throw this on and let's try and get it going. Because you need to kind of respect the time that goes into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's why for this game, for our playthrough that we did last week, I had said a week prior, like, I want to do this. I want to make this happen. And in my mind, even with going through everything, and mostly it was because of how terribly the other games had gone, as far as the AI just destroying us right away,
okay.
and not being able to defeat the aliens as they were appearing. I was like, yeah, hour and a half tops. It was like 4.
The one that we played?
Yeah, it was like 4 hours. So
Yeah, it was
time.
bordering on.
It was absolutely good time.
But it is that thing that again, as we're unintentionally playing kind of the turns a little off, it did actually move the game along quite a bit, because
Yeah.
I think if we did go around, like, there was definitely a couple times where people could have picked up stuff, built stuff. Hey,
Yep.
you're doing all this turn. Your turn ends up taking 10 to 15 minutes. And then, but I'm saying though, and then at the end of the game, as you're getting to like the end of like, hey, 15, if somebody is really like, hey, I need to get to the hyperbaric chamber or hibernarium or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think it was Hibernarium.
Yeah. That is something where the one person is trying to prolong the game. And that's where it's kind of like, some people might be like, hey, I'm trying to get in and out. Like if your thing was like, activate the pods, get out of the ship.
And to that point, I mean, there's 2 separate games I can think of where I was playing with Rick, and he had to go. He had to go.
That sucks.
One of them was playing Nemesis, and his character, just kind of died and dropped everything there.
Right.
And the other game was we played Mansions of Madness, and we were going along. It's a really fun game.
Okay.
It's actually driven by an app. So you
Ooh,
play the
that's
game.
cool.
It's the same thing. It's like you are actually building the map as you go of the mansion.
Oh, cool.
So it's all little tile cards.
Yes,
and you choose
just
what
like
room,
Betrayal,
what room you're going to go into.
Okay.
You press the button on the app, and then it tells you what card to grab, and you put the card down, and you're building all the rooms of the mansion
really
as you
cool.
go. There's another one with a train. We were playing the one with the train, and apparently the cars would like fall off as you're going. So we had to leave Rick, and he fell off. I got sucked into a thing called the Void, where you're there until somebody can get you out of, or you can roll yourself out of the Void. Mm-hmm. And our game ended when the train took off from the platform, and our remaining players were there, so everybody fell in the Void, and we lost.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun part, is that you're playing games that are difficult. So you really winning is a thing. And it also encourages you to play the games again and again.
Yeah, well, I would just kind of end on this, is that the variation of like how the games can go is very interesting to me, because I feel like you really aren't going to play the same type of game twice. Like, it really is going to be like, you might encounter the similar type of things, the fire, but then again, it's also kind of where I'm preaching that, like, playing the game a little bit more than, oh, hey, we can build this thing to get the fire out, or hey, we can do this to build to fix the manufacturer. But again, I do really like the fact, though, that again, even just in like, this kind of 30-minute quick podcast here, going over that, I mean, maybe we kind of tease one, and the next time, and then we say, hey, we're going to play this. Now, again, I did mention possibly filming Armada, maybe, but even just as a recap of like, hey, this is what we did. And
I'm looking at 2 games, one I've played before and one that I have not played yet, that are sitting on the counter. One of them is called Galaxy Trucker, which is a game I'm excited to play with our nephew. And the other one is called Star Wars Outer Rim, which I've heard nothing but good things. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to do ahead of ourselves.
But like I said, I do think that it's very, very cool to kind of get, and we'll be like, hey, we're gonna do this game, and then if somebody's like, hey, that's cool, and want to see, because again, we're definitely branching out. I mean, this is,
I'm thinking there should be a whole series where we just grab and bring friends of yours who don't like games and just drag them through the games.
No, that'd be horrible. That'd be absolutely terrible. But
yeah,
again, we'll I think there's a couple of different cool avenues that we can go down to. Again, whether filming us playing, or even just like, hey, this is a recap of how this went. I honestly, I would like to see kind of Nemesis number 2. Maybe that's the title of this one, is Nemesis.
Yeah.
And then we figure out, or Nemesis round 1. Then we get into Nemesis round 2.
There's a whole other series of Nemesis games coming out. I think the cost for that one was like $400 to get all of it. Woo! Yeah, it hits the pocketbook a little bit. But anyway, thanks for playing. Thanks for talking about it.
Hey, man.
You take care.
Good time. Talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye.